We've spoken about old Yu-Gi-Oh! Fusion monsters that don't make sense as fusions to begin with, but what about those non-fusions that would have made sense if they were fusions from the start? Yu-Gi-Oh! Loves to retrain classic boss monsters, and sometimes, if those main deck bosses seemed like they would be a good amalgamation, they got retrained as fusions, or sometimes Konami retrains them as fusions because they feel like it. We'll be looking at monsters that started in the main deck, but were later retrained as fusions with little to no changes to their visuals. We mostly want to rank them on how well these monsters fit as fusions. Their effects are just bonuses for us. And joining me is the person who notices things on cards that no one else does, Judgment Meter.
Did these old monsters become new monsters?
New form, retrain, upgrade, whatever you want to call it.
What?
Now, let's assemble the top 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters that became fusions. Number 10, Time Wizard of Tomorrow. I appreciate how much Konami tried making Time Wizard work early on. Its manga effect had it spin a roulette. The good result would fling the field 1,000 years into the future, powering up the user's monsters by giving them years of experience, and wearing down the opponent's monsters with aging, but the bad result would send your monsters away with burn damage to yourself. With that being hard to put in the real-life card game, they made it a game of chance with a coin flip. The good result is a monster board wipe for your opponent, and the bad result is a board wipe for yourself with half the monster's attack taken out of your life points. They tried a few of the aged monsters too, but they weren't very useful, so Time Wizard was put away for almost 20 years. But in 2020, we got a new Time Wizard in the form of a fusion, Time Wizard of Tomorrow. Fuse Time Wizard with an effect monster, and now he gets a full monster board wipe on both sides of the field and deals damage equal to half the total attack. The question is, where does that damage go? The coin flip returns to determine who takes the damage, so it's mostly a risk-reward board wipe. Call it right, your opponent takes the damage. Call it wrong, you take the damage. The concept of making him a fusion does make sense, since one of the aged counterparts, Thousand Dragon, was turned into a fusion in real life that uses Time Wizard, giving him that fusion connection. And look at him now, he's purple and blue, looks like a Trix yogurt.
He's so cute. He has little booties. He looks so distinguished. He's like a real grandpa. I want to turn those little cogs.
I don't know if you should do that.
Why not?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it hurts him?
He's like one of those really big clocks that kids use to learn how to tell time. You know the ones I'm talking about? The plastic one? And you get to turn those cogs.
Well, he's not one of those.
You don't know.
While the upgrade was nice for the sake of giving him attention, I would have hoped a modern Time Wizard would attempt to do something with time, like banishing monsters for a turn, but then having a turn manipulation effect that skips over the part of the turn where the monster returns, leaving it banished. It would be something like that Agami skill in Duel Links that erases all the banished cards for the duel. They could also make Time Wizard a full archetype with the aged counterparts while they're at it, retrain Dark Sage and Thousand Dragon again, and then make Harpy Lady Elders, fossilized Red Eyes, obsolete Barrel Dragon, and a Flying Machine field spell for good measure. What would they do? I haven't thought that far, but I'll get back to you the next time we do a Time Wizard segment. Number 9, Transcendosaurus Gigantozowler. This is an upgrade of Megazowler, a normal monster that you would only see in early Yu-Gi-Oh! A level 6 dinosaur with 1800 attack and 2000 defense, and lured to make it sound like it's even more efficient than it actually is.
Nothing stands in the way of this spiked-covered dinosaur. Why is dinosaur in blue?
Cause you're reading it on the wiki and that's a clickable link.
No way.
Seems like a random normal monster on paper, but it had one bit of prominence in Rex Raptor's deck in his Duelist Kingdom duel against Joey, where it destroyed a monster, then got destroyed by Flame Swordsman, and that moment was immortalized on a card, so that's his legacy. Though I feel every monster used during Duelist Kingdom to an extent is like Generation 1 of Pokemon to the general public. People just like to see that group of monsters get attention, no matter how small, so I feel Megazowler getting attention is more likely than a random normal monster that never showed up in the anime, though I do prefer the dinosaur with a sword for a tail if we're talking Rex's random normal monsters. After not doing anything for over 2 decades, Megazowler got an upgrade in 2023 with the Transcendosaurus archetype. This was an archetype that supported dinosaur monsters as a whole, with their extra deck monsters having different effects when summoned and, with their big gimmick being after they're destroyed, you can shuffle a normal monster from the graveyard back into the deck to resummon them, thereby activating their effects again when they're summoned with bonuses. And with their focus on utilizing normal monsters, 3 out of their 4 extra deck monsters are upgraded forms of old level 6 normal dinosaurs, with the Xyz one being an upgrade of Lansfalreinkiss, the Synchro being an upgrade of Frostosaurus, and the Fusion being an upgrade of Megazowler. His effect on summon lets you add a dinosaur from your graveyard to your hand, and if it was summoned from the graveyard, you get to destroy a dinosaur in your hand or field and a card on your opponent's side of the field, so you can keep the Dino Destruction party going. Its materials are 1 dinosaur and 1 normal monster, so theoretically, original Megazowler could be either material, or both if you're feeling super authentic. Finally, I love the extremeness in the details of its upgrade. It got even more size and spikes, the Mega is replaced with Giganto, it has 2,000 more attack points, and its level doubles. Something feels right about a big old dinosaur with 12 stars.
Holy crap, he grew up. Wow, he grew up big time. How'd that happen? Did Time Wizard make him grow up?
No, this is not Time Wizard. Time Wizard turns him to bones if he does his magic. We don't want that for him. Number 8, the Dark Magicians. This card is cute. I like the artwork, and it has an effect, but a very fair effect. It's not really broken, but it helps out the deck. It features the Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl on the art, with the fusion materials being either of them, and any old spellcaster, which could be whichever one you don't use as the first material to make the picture accurate. Since Dark Magician decks have a lot of searchability and a fusion spell, it makes this monster easy to summon. Its effect is, once per turn on either player's turn, when a spell or trap is activated, you get to draw 1 card, and if that card you drew is a spell or trap, you can set it that turn, and you're able to activate it if it's a quick play spell or any old trap, so you might get some utility. It's a game of chance, really. The effect is a nice addition to a Dark Magician board, but it's not some crazy negate or indestructible form, it's just your 2 buddies hanging out, so it's not the end of the world if your opponent stops them, though I do like their bonus effect, where if they're destroyed, you can summon a Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl anywhere from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And I love how straightforward that is. They're the 2 monsters on the card. You're essentially splitting them in 2 if you destroy them, cause visually, yeah, they are both the fusion.
But they're not fused together. They're just standing next to each other.
Yeah, but Dark Magician Girl has a cool hat now.
Doesn't she always have a hat?
It's different now.
What's different? This is the same.
It's got a new pattern because she knows advanced magic now.
Oh, it has a Konami orb now. Wow. She's no longer a girl. She's a woman.
See, I told you, it's different enough.
Is he always green?
Yeah, it depends on the card.
Why isn't she green?
Yeah, I don't know, because they don't want her to be green.
They have different eyes.
Well, they're different people.
Oh, okay. They don't have to have the same eyes then. I feel like this is an in-between card, and there should be another card where they're actually fused into one being.
What, are they supposed to do the fusion dance after this card?
Yeah, Dragon Ball Fusion. Oh, wouldn't it be so cute if they were doing that pose? Oh, God. I want them to do the fusion dance. She would have to stand on her tippy toes, and the Dark Magician man would have to bend down.
Are they both close enough in power level to do that?
They're on the same card. It could work.
That's like saying we're in the same video so we could fuse. What would our fusion name even be?
Mr. Top 10 Meter. Mr. Meter. Mr. Top 10 Meter.
Okay, you've convinced me. Let's fuse.
Fusion I am Mr. Top 10 Meter.
And let's try the other name for good measure. I am Judgment List. That was fun. Thank you for letting us indulge, everyone. Number 7, Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. The original Light and Darkness Dragon is a monster that negates an activated spell, trap, or monster effect by either player once per chain, not just turn, by losing 500 attack and defense, but the effect is mandatory, so if you want to activate a spell or trap, it automatically negates them too. The user doesn't get a choice. Basically, the first few spells or traps activated in their own chain after it's summoned is all it can negate. It was still great for when it came out in 2007, but the opponent could manipulate it a bit by playing some spells or traps to force it to lower its attack, and then summon a monster that was now bigger than it to attack over it. Though it had a second effect in preparation for that, where when it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you could target one other monster in your graveyard graveyard and summon it, but you have to destroy all other cards you control when this effect is used, and this effect is mandatory too. It was 2007, this was a fair trade-off.
Is his stomach one color or is it two colors? Because it just looks like his white leg is sticking out.
Well, yeah, he's got one light leg and one dark leg. Makes sense.
But what about his belly? Is his belly two colors?
Wait, yeah, I think you're right. I never noticed that he's not split down the middle on the belly. He only has light.
Yeah, what's that about?
Well, don't you like light attribute better than dark anyway?
I mean, generally I'm on the side of good, allegedly, but I like when things are even, and that's just not fair.
Light and Darkness Dragon was prominent for Manjome or Chaz in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX manga, where it was basically a fusion. It was still a main deck monster like it was in real life, but it was visually composed of Light End Dragon and Dark End Dragon, which were main deck monsters in the manga, but for some reason they were unrelated synchro monsters when printed in the real life card game. They still had their manga effects, both of which lowered their attack and defense by 500 when used, just like the big dragon, but it was weird that they related them to a summoning method that wasn't in GX. After essentially being a fusion for all those years, Konami literally made it a fusion in 2024 with Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, where it was technically made better. The original dragon could not be special summoned, so with all the fusion methods now, it's pretty easy to get out the Dragon Lord. Same negating effect, they gave it 600 more attack and defense points, but now it has to reduce itself by 1000 attack and defense, so it's kind of a wash. And when it's destroyed by your opponent's card, you get to revive a dragon. The extra note with this fusion is they finally retrained Light and Dark End Dragon to be main deck monsters with supporting effects. They both had their old effects, but you could also special summon them by banishing a dragon from the extra deck, which basically means they're a free summon, and they let you fusion summon a monster using cards in your hand and field, clearly meant for Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. His materials are one level 8 Light Dragon and one level 8 Dark Dragon, referencing those two dragons, so it's pretty straightforward. These dragons don't have an archetype based around them, but with dragons being one of, if not the most supported type, there's a lot of ways to search the main deck dragons, and with fusion dragons being very accessible with the Brandon archetype, Light and Darkness Dragon Lord found a home in that deck. It's not their best end piece, but hey, free negates are free negates. Number 6, Buster Blader the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. I tend to forget Buster Blader has a connection to fusion, but yeah, he was half of the duo that made up Dark Paladin in the Battle City duel against Kaiba. It was just that Dark Paladin took on way more features of Dark Magician than he did Buster Blader, and in general, Buster Blader always felt like he was on a side mission whenever he got legacy support. All of his cards depict him on a journey with his new pet baby dragon that he tragically will have to fight when it grows up, which I covered in my second backstory list. I feel like Konami did not really know what direction to go in to make Buster Blader better when initially giving him support. His original effect just gives him 500 additional attack points per dragon on your opponent's field or in their graveyard. Since a strategy around your opponent playing a single monster type is unreliable, he then got a retrain that lets Buster equip monsters destroyed of your opponents to himself, and then he can send that equipped monster to the graveyard to destroy monsters with that type on the field, so he could potentially react to whatever monster type your opponent is playing. But then Konami said, screw it, we're going back to the dragons, and he got a fusion upgrade called Buster Blader the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. He gains 1000 attack per dragon your opponent controls and in their graveyard, along with forcing your opponent's dragons into defense, and your opponent's dragons cannot activate their effects. Plus he deals piercing damage, so since he switches dragons to defense, that comes into play. He cannot attack directly though, but since this card came out in 2016, and potentially had high attack with piercing if there were a few dragons on the field, that was likely their way of balancing him. On the surface, this just seems like another unreliable gamble that your opponent has a dragon deck. You could use a trap like DNA Surgery to make all monsters on the field count as dragons, but that card is unsearchable. However, with the baby dragon in Buster Blader's story, Buster Whelp, it allows for synchro summon plays, letting you synchro summon his big form, Buster Dragon. It has the effect that turns all your opponent's monsters on the field into dragons to guarantee the swordsman's effect, and the dragon can revive your Buster Bladers from the graveyard if you lose them. The strategy can still be stopped with other forms of monster removal, but once you get out the dragon and the swordsman fusion with the various archetypal spells and traps that speed up the fusion process, consider your opponent's monsters floodgated.
His body fused with the dragon? Where? How?
I mean, it fused more with his equipment, not his body directly.
Okay, I'm like, the sword, yes. Oh, and I guess the white part of the armor. Sure. Okay, I hope that works out. And he does give off daddy energy.
Huh, not sure about that one.
You're wrong. I don't believe you.
Number 5, Rainbow Over Dragon. Original Rainbow Dragon follows the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX era idea that archetypes need a boss dragon, this one being for crystal beasts. To summon him, you have to traverse an alternate dimension to find the dragon so the creator of Duel Monsters can make the card. Or in real life, just have 7 different crystal beast monsters on the field or in the graveyard in total, and you can summon him. Crystal beasts can be put in the back row as continuous spells, so there were ways to get them on the field out of danger. This method was slow and inefficient until later on when they made cards that just turbo them out to the back row and searched the dragon. Really, the spectacle was just summoning the dragon overall, since the effect was His effects are, you can send all the crystal beasts you control to the graveyard and it gains 1000 attack per beast, and you can banish all crystal beasts from your graveyard to shuffle all cards on the field back into the deck. Also, you cannot use these effects the turn it's summoned, so I hope your opponent doesn't have a trap to destroy it or a plan for it to turn later before you can use these effects. That being said, it has 4000 attack points, so you can just use it as a big guy. But then, in 2018, Konami thought, hey, what if the 7 crystal beasts fused to make the dragon? And we got Rainbow Over Dragon. I don't know though, I always felt this one was kinda worse. You do have the option to summon it by instead tributing a level 10 Ultimate Crystal monster, which is literally just Rainbow or Dark Rainbow Dragon, so you can just build upon your Rainbow Dragon summoning. It has 2 similar effects to Rainbow Dragon. For the attack gain effect, you can banish a crystal beast from your graveyard once per turn and gain its attack, and for the shuffling effect, it can quick effect tribute itself to shuffle all cards on the field back into the deck, but you can only do that if you fusion summoned it, not if you tributed a Rainbow Dragon to summon it, so that effect may be null and void, which in part is why I don't like this fusion as much as the original Rainbow Dragon. However, we don't even have to worry about that fusion anymore, since in 2022, Crystal Beasts got a structure deck, and now we have an upgraded fusion, Ultimate Crystal Rainbow Dragon Overdrive.
So what is this? The Rainbow Dragon
And the 7 Crystal Beasts.
Oh no, so this is okay. This isn't the stupid white dragon with the purple chest. This is the good one.
Wait, are you talking about Stardust Dragon?
Oh, thank goodness. I was about to say horrible things.
Why do you hate Stardust Dragon?
Aw, it has fluffy feathers and all the colors of the rainbow, like the crystal animals.
Beasts. Looking cool aside, this guy knows how to do an effect. You can only summon it if an Ultimate Crystal monster was summoned during the duel, and to summon it, banish 7 Crystal Beasts and an Ultimate Crystal from your field or graveyard, and its effect lets it gain 7000 attack if you have 7 different Crystal Beasts banished, which yeah, you should, you just summoned it by banishing 7 of them. It already started with 4000 attack points, meaning you now have 11,000 attack points of destruction. If that's not enough, for the shuffling effect, you can tribute it, shuffle all the cards on the field back into the deck, and then summon as many banished Crystal Beasts as possible, which you'll likely have 7 to choose from, so for once, your field won't be empty after doing a Rainbow Dragon field shuffle effect. It's still not the most busted effect, but this card is so much better than the other 2 Rainbow Dragons discussed. I'm happy there's a good Rainbow Dragon out there, even if I think it could be a bit more broken. Number 4, Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Dark World. The original Grapha, Dragon of Dark World, is a part of the Dark World archetype, which is an archetype of fiend monsters who have effects that activate when they're discarded, with bonus effects if your opponent's effect caused them to be discarded. With original Grapha, he destroys a card on your opponent's side of the field when he's discarded, with the extra effect where if he's discarded by your opponent's effect, you can randomly pick a card in your opponent's hand, and if you picked a monster, you can steal it. He also can special summon himself from the graveyard by returning a Dark World monster on the field to the hand to take even more advantage of being discarded. After various waves of Dark World support, Grapha was due for an update, and wouldn't you you know, it was a fusion in the Dark World structure deck in 2022, where now he was the Overlord Dragon.
What kind of demon from hell is this?
Not hell, Dark World.
Oh my god. Oh my goodness.
My guess is, since Dark World monsters were already horrifying demon monstrosities, they just took Grapha and added more of things he already had, like limbs and wings.
Oh, lovely. I think you need another head. Bloop.
This Grapha has one of my favorite styles of effect, where it changes your opponent's card effects. If your opponent activates a monster effect or normal spell or trap, Grapha can quick effect change that effect to say, your opponent discards one card, and since your opponent's opponent is you, that means you get to discard a card, and it's your opponent technically telling you to do so. And remember how Dark World gets the bonuses when it's your opponent's effects that cause you to discard? Well, now that means you're maximizing your Dark World cards. Also, when this Grapha leaves the field due to an opponent's card, you can summon the original Grapha from your graveyard or banishment, and then each player discards a card for more Dark World madness. You fusion summon this guy with the original Grapha and any dark monster, which should be easy since all the Dark Worlds are dark and they have a fusion spell, but this is also a good super polymerization target, which is a quick play spell that lets you fuse using your opponent's monsters on the field too, and since dark is a common attribute, your opponent could be playing that. In fact, that's why updating Grapha as a fusion makes sense. In the anime, the Dark World King was the guy who introduced super polymerization, setting off all the evil ways it could be used, so giving the Dark World monster boss a fusion is something that seems like it should have existed from the start. That being said, Grapha wasn't even used in the anime. The fusion boss was a demon by the name Chlorlus, whose effect was so sinister it wasn't even shown due to anime BS preventing it, but he eventually got printed, where we learned he was, okay I guess. Anyway, thanks for the fusion Grapha, I'm gonna go discard a card. Number 3, the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. Exodia makes a lot of sense as a fusion. When you think about it, he was already kind of a fusion. The 5 pieces of his body come together to form a giant dude. Though he's more like one of those boss monsters in card games that have parts of a picture on a few different cards, and then you put them together like a puzzle to summon a super big boss monster. Only Exodia just wins as soon as you have all the cards in your hand, with the deck just relying on different ways to draw cards until you might get all 5 pieces. The other main deck monsters that tried to retrain Exodia never were good, but finally in 2024, someone at Konami thought, hey, why don't we just fuse all the pieces? And then he was great.
He's like a pocket Exodia. Like if you were playing a gacha game and you put your money into the little thing and then you took out the prize, and you're like, oh my god, I got an Exodia! But it'd be teeny because it had to fit in the capsule.
Judgment meter, the size of him on the card is not literally to scale. He's supposed to be multiple stories tall like he was in the anime.
He's baby to fit in a capsule. Capsule monster.
You don't even have to fusion summon him with a traditional fusion spell or contact fusion. All you need is the spell Millennium Ankh, which lets you show that you have all 5 pieces in your hand or deck, and then you get a free big guy. The only trade-off is you have to shuffle any non-Exodia or non-Millennium monsters on the field back into the deck, but most of the time you're only using his own Millennium archetype, so that setback never seems to come up. It feels like a fusion in name only, since you don't have to send anything from your hand, deck, or field to the graveyard to summon him. His new archetype, Millennium, is a bunch of retrained monsters that help him get to the Ankh, but I'll talk about those guys whenever I cover retrains again.
Why do all these cards look chibi?
No, once again, they're all giant monsters who are larger than life.
Wow. Like the Earth?
As for this new Exodia, first off, he's indestructible by card effects, pretty good. Next, he has question mark attack, where he gains attack equal to your life points during either player's battle phase, and he can stack each turn, so he's generally able to get close to 8,000 attack no matter who's at turn 2, and it just keeps getting bigger. He can also negate a spell or trap once per turn, and as an end phase effect, he can set one Exod or obliterate spell or trap, with your go-to trap usually being Exod Fires of Rage, being a board wipe on your opponent if you control a level 10 or higher Exodia monster, which you basically always will since you'll have the fusion up. So if you go first, you automatically get a trap that can board wipe at any point, plus a spell trap negate if your opponent tries to destroy the trap on their turn or any other funny business, plus Exodia's own destruction prevention is active. He does make you lose 1000 life points during each of your standby phases to hurt the attack gain effect a little, but usually that's a petty price to pay. This card is fantastic and fairly easy to get out, so if you want a nostalgic deck with an all-in-one monster, Exodia might be your man. Number 2, Yubel, the loving defender forever. With Yubel being the final boss, duelist, and monster of Season 3 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, it's amazing how long it took for them to get an update. In real life, they initially just existed as 3 cards that upgrade into each other. Default Yubel is a 0 attack and defense monster who can't be destroyed by battle, and if your opponent is foolish enough to attack Yubel, the monster's attack is taken out of the opponent's life points. If Yubel gets destroyed, you can summon Yubel, Terror Incarnate, from your deck, who still has original Yubel's effects, with the bonus effect that at the end of your turn, all other monsters on the field get destroyed, no matter whose side they're on. If that Yubel leaves the field, then you can summon the big boss from the deck, Yubel, the Ultimate Nightmare, who has the same effects minus the board wipe, but it can also attack into your opponent's monsters to get its burn damage effect, so you don't just have to rely on your opponent attacking into you. And if Ultimate Nightmare is destroyed, well, thanks for playing. With Yubel being an upgrading boss in the anime, they did not need to worry about their final form being ousted since it was a scripted duel, but in real life, the boss had no backup, so this series of cards was pretty much unreliable, and I would say it was unusable until its later support. There were a few inconsistent, janky strategies with Fire Kings who could destroy original Yubel in the hand to get out Terror Incarnate, but it wasn't until 2023 when Yubel got their own archetype, and it was really good. The main strategy is to get out your various Yubel monsters and their continuous spell, Nightmare Pain, which makes it where your opponent takes all the damage when Yubel monsters attack into their monsters. But for the topic of this video, they got 2 new fusions with this support. The one that's vital for the deck is Phantom of Yubel, based on when they were still reforming their own body in the anime, just being an arm. This fusion can summon itself by shuffling from the hand, field, or graveyard back into the deck 1 Yubel monster and 1 0-stat fiend, which is the whole archetype. When your opponent activates a monster effect, this monster can tribute itself and change that effect to say your opponent destroys a Yubel monster, with you being your opponent, thereby triggering the effects to search and summon. That's a great card since it blanks out one of your opponent's effects while activating yours. However, for the theme of this list, I want to talk about the more direct Yubel fusion retrain, Yubel the Loving Defender Forever. This card is technically the final boss of the Yubel archetype, but it's not the most efficient card to bring out. It's more of a flex if you can summon it. This Yubel has the general appearance of the original Yubel, but the dragon head of the upgraded forms is their hand now. I think it's a nice visual tribute to the original trio of cards. Yubel is also doing the Flame Wingman pose, referencing how they just wanted to be Jaden's protector in the anime, so they're acting like Jaden's original ace monster.
What did she fuse with? She part Flame Wingman? Did she eat Flame Winged Man? She ate him, didn't she? You know what? She kills it. So much hotter like this. We don't even need a Flame Winged Man card. Man, look at all those muscles she's ripped. She makes glitter. She makes sparkles. Could she punch you out with that dragon hand? Yeah, she's pretty hot here. Now, I'm not a big Yubel fan, but something about that glitter.
The big gimmick with this Yubel form is in their fusion materials. You need 1 Yubel monster, and then any number of effect monsters on the field. There's no limit. While you could use your own, it's really meant to be used with Yubel's trap, Eternal Favorite, which has an effect that mimics super polymerization, so you can use your opponent's side of the field, in reference to how Yubel was the final user of super polymerization for the season, and how Jaden ended the duel by fusing his soul with Yubel to purify her heart and give him a cool guardian demon internally for the rest of the series. But yeah, you're essentially becoming one with the opponent if you do the super polymerization strategy. And to add to the gimmick, Yubel deals 500 damage for each monster used to summon her to punish the opponent for having a bigger board. And finally, it has the classic Yubel battle protection and deals damage back when battling, only it banishes any monsters it battles. In the end, I wish this monster was more efficient to utilize in Yubel decks since it is so much fun to summon. For number 1, it was not about the best fusion, but rather the monster that felt like it got ripped off the most by not being a fusion from the start, so as a result, it was in high demand to be retrained for decades, and the fusion archetype that came from it made sense. It wasn't the greatest, but it was functional. Number 1. Gate Guardian Combined. Hype is purely what drives my love for Gate Guardian. The way they utilized it in the real-life card game always felt like it got ripped off, since it was impossible to summon and it was better off just staying the 3 separate pieces that made it up. It came out in Metal Raiders, the second TCG set, where you could only summon it as a main deck monster by tributing its 3 elemental pieces that were separate monsters and they had to be on the field: Sangha of the Thunder, Kazejin, the Wind guy, and Suijin, the Water guy. One of the main issues is they were all level 7, and this was very early Yu-Gi-Oh, when there were no easy ways to get them out fast other than tributing 2 monsters to summon them normally. So getting out monsters on the field that required tributing 2 monsters 3 times and being lucky enough to get all 3 pieces to begin with was pretty hard to do. If you could do it, you might as well just win the duel without the inefficient boss. They all have solid attack values, ranging from 24 to 2600, and they each have a nice effect where they reduce an attacking monster's attack to 0. But if you wanted, you could tribute all 3 of these guys for Gate Guardian if you had it in your hand. And what do you get? Just a big beat stick with 3750 attack and no extra effects. Big attack is nice in early Yu-Gi-Oh, but realistically, there's no way you're getting him out, and this was not a fair trade-off at all. The 3 pieces were so much better. They were trying to emulate the manga and anime with basic gameplay mechanics, but failed at it. In the manga and anime, the Paradox brothers eventually drew all 3 monsters needed, but instead of summoning them while waiting for all the pieces, they got to put them in the back row, preparing to combine them. Once all 3 pieces were there, Gate Guardian came forth, and it was essentially the 3 individual monsters as one, and he just formed a card out of nowhere. It wasn't some main deck or fusion card. Each piece still had their attack neutralizing effect, and you could destroy them 1 piece at a time. It was the equivalent of having 3 big guys on the field in the real life card game, but they only take up 1 monster zone. With the anime duel being so iconic and Gate Guardian having an awesome design, a more functional version was on wish lists for years, and with anime archetypes getting facelifts annually, it was only a matter of time. That being said, it took a real long time. But finally, in 2023, Gate Guardian got a fleshed out archetype revolving around combining the different pieces via contact fusion. The support cards of the deck were based around other cards from the Labyrinth Gate Guardian duel that make the monster pieces function more like they did in the anime. The retrained Shadow Ghoul searches your new Labyrinth Wall. The new Labyrinth Wall is now a field spell that puts any of the 3 monsters in the back row. The new Labyrinth Tank also puts pieces in the back row, and the Jirai Gumo trap recovers any banished pieces. Once the pieces are on the field, you can go to town. You have more options than just the 3 combined. You can combine any 2 pieces for different monsters with unique effects, which felt like a no-brainer idea. They were all about combining, so why not pair up as many combinations as possible? You have Thunder and Wind, which searches up the spell cards of the archetype, and visually is the only other canonical form we saw.
I like the guy in the middle. He has puffy cheeks, like a ham.
Water and Thunder reduces a monster's attack to 0 twice per turn, and still looks like a pretty natural combination visually.
Oh, Water guy is totally taking all of the spotlight here. You can barely even see the lightning guy. He's like, get the fuck off my back, you expletive. I can carry this show on my own.
Wind and Water negate spells or traps twice per turn, and visually really reminds me of how small Kazejin is.
What is this? What is this? Abomination. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's like a Halloween scarecrow.
And finally, the 3 combined negate any targeting effects 3 times per turn. These aren't the best effects in the world, but I like how you can use them per turn up to the number of pieces that make them up. And if any of these fusions leave the field due to an opponent's card, you can summon one of the pieces that make them up. And for the big guy, one of the 2-piece fusions can be summoned instead, referencing when Suijin was destroyed in the anime, but the other 2 parts remained.
I feel like Waterman is just waiting for the moment when something falls into his mouth. He's very tongue-centric. It's definitely trying to scare you. Some intimidation tactics are trying to happen right here.
To summon them, you banish the pieces you control, being the ones that you put in the back row, emulating how Gate Guardian was summoned in the manga. And for Gate Guardians combined, you can also banish from the graveyard in hand. I know the archetype is pretty mediocre, but I love how it manages to stay in the spirit of the original while updating the archetype enough to make it playable. And they even left them open for future support. There's a few monsters from the duel that did not get retrains like Dungeon Worm or Monster Tamer, plus the potential to retrain the 3 pieces themselves. Regardless, this was a retrain that was on the top of my list for 2 decades, and it was hype enough to make Gate Guardians Combined my top monster that became a fusion. Now, what did you think? Were all these monsters better off as fusions, or should they have stayed in the main deck? And what are some of your favorite monsters that moved over to the fusion gate, whether we discussed them or not? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.